Alright fellas, good job so far. We've got half an hour to cover the last half of the 20th century. But at this pace, I think we're golden. Hello, I'm Emma. I'm Senior Director with the Research Division for Norton Textbooks. Due to some complaints from that pesky Board of Education, I'm leading a task force in rewriting the American history textbooks for all public schools.
As a professor of American history, I'm just a little concerned that we've only spent a day on this, but Norton's buying me a car, so...
Hello, I'm Aurora. I'm a global studies professor specializing in the Cold War era.
So, next subject, Cold War.
That's easy. The USSR collapses, the US was a superior group, the whole world knew it, and that's why US culture is so popular.
Yeah, right, man. Get the hooks out of your brain. Don't you understand? I am a studier of paranormal phenomena, underground conspiracies, and a dabbler in cryptozoology. But my real passion is international relations and global studies. Just how the Soviets poisoned the minds of their citizens, the United States employed its own system of propagandic practices during the Cold War.
That was justified. Communism was a bad idea from the start. Its fault spoke for itself.
Justified as you say it was still lying on a massive scale, man. We're talking brontosaurus huge, and who's to say that all of their motives were pure?
He does make a good point. Even before the beginning of World War II, you could argue that there was a war on the unknown. For example, the Lust Committee in 1920, they were tasked with rooting out radicals from New York City, and in their final report to Congress, they warned of aliens and foreign workers building a class hatred and government contempt. It's the same mantra they repeat for years, just without the direction towards communism.
Exactly. They're just scared of the unknown. Communism is different, seen as a threat and destroyed before it even stood a chance.
You can't be arguing in favor of communism. It was a system broken from the start.
I'd just say it wasn't properly executed in that case, man.
Regardless, I think we can agree that a war of ideas was started between the two world wars, and its weapon was propaganda, on both sides.
That's definitely true. You had the Committee of the Public Information and the Better America Federation, before World War II even started, putting out pamphlets and public notices on a massive scale.
Oh right, the Better America Federation? Yeah, slick name they had. How could I forget such a pleasant name for such a toxic organization? Man, I'm looking at the figures right now. They regularly dispatch membership rosters for the Communist Party of the United States, and I'm telling you, they were victimizing innocent people just because they didn't agree with the status quo. I mean, how is that all right?
Well, as it turned out, practically every Soviet spy was a member of the Communist Party.
But not every member was a spy, man.
Of course not, but it's the easiest group to start looking at.
The speculation just started growing from there, though. By the beginning of the Cold War, McCarthyism in America was accusing all sorts of people of communist affiliation.
Not to mention, Britain's Information Research Department. They had their own list of dissenters, courtesy of George Orwell. Writers, artists, politicians he deemed suspicious and not worthy of employment.
The fake notion of the American melting pot was dead. Any behavior or culture different from the norm was terrifying, man. You only had two options, and they were to fully conform to the ideal lifestyle, or to be labeled as a radical, made a target. Man.
That's true. Come to think of it, the 50s seemed like a type of time of religious and social conformity that was unparalleled up to that time.
You betcha. At the same time, church attendance in the United States was at an all-time high in 1957. Politicians were making the Cold War into a religious war.
Trying to equate the communist cause with the atheist cause, putting the lack of religion and theology against the puritanical ideals of the state, the United States. Don't you see how they're trying to put hooks in your brains? Man, in the 50s, that's when our Pledge of Allegiance received the words, under God. Heck, in Hollywood, we had members of the CIA in bed with the top filmmaking moguls.
He's right. While the entertainment industry has always been a separate entity from the government, the Office of Policy Coordination had men paying lucrative sums to company heads willing to make their products reflect highly of American values. This started as far back as World War II, where Hollywood films were employed regularly by the government to re-educate the German and Japanese populations.
Yes, and we all know films are an international business. This may have been a soft power in the United States' fight against the USSR, but bolstering a cultural hegemony was a power nonetheless. As American filmmaker Wim Wenders put it, the pictorial landscapes and simple plots of the Hollywood pictures colonized the subconscious of Europe.
I guess it's no surprise then that films like The Ten Commandments and Ben-Hur were made and widely consumed by the American public.
And still, throughout the mid-20th century, we had Radio Free Europe and other sources of American media feeding into the Eastern European countries. The United States Information Agency subsidized numerous documentaries across a multitude of nations, all in the effort to create an output of truthful, capitalist, propagandic media.
So it would appear that the American government, even with quite modest investments, was able to create a visual and sonic output of media that espoused Western cultures and ideas.
As great as this discussion is, we've still got a chapter to write on the Cold War, and all it seems we're doing is debating the morality of propaganda.
Systematic approach to the corrosion and lying to the public on a massive scale isn't substantial. We can't just gloss over it.
This again? We can't just demonize the American government for doing what it seemed necessary. Sure, there was some misinformation, but it was a war of ideas that Russia was doing everything in its power to win.
Middle ground, people. We have to publish something. If the propaganda machine was dangerous on both sides, we don't want to ignore that. What was the downside of what America was doing? Maybe we could focus on that?
For starters, we still have ideas today that are shunned before they're given a chance. You know, when was the last time you saw a legitimate candidate for the United States Socialist Party?
Isn't that their fault though? If you don't have supporters, it's a good sign your ideas don't have any support.
Oh, or arguably more likely, people just don't get it, and they disagree by default because it's strange and weird, and they haven't put it on their tongue yet.
I see where you're getting at. A strong case can be made for America falling behind the rest of the world, especially in regards to social reforms, ever since the 1970s. And it's not a large assumption to say that this is a result of avoidance of anything even remotely communist or socialist.
That is true. Many union leaders suffered from communist accusations, and that certainly impacted their efforts. As it stands now, most Western European countries have more progressive rights on workers.
Not to mention that the United States was one of the last of the majorly developed countries to adopt some form of socialized healthcare.
Exactly. These ideas are pervasive. Man, once they've been shared, they take a while to reverse. Man, you gotta see through the fog, and the only way to see through the fog is to put on your high beams. High beam it.
So with that in mind, what do we want to say in the textbook?
Maybe that an idea, when presented, should be given fair opportunity to flourish.
And heavy consideration should be given before we solve foreign disputes with an ideological war.
And if that idea does fail, it should be because of its flaws, instead of its misconceptions to the public.
One thing's for certain, I ain't drinking the Kool-Aid.